Hello, everybody, and welcome to this free substance abuse recovery class online. This is the second of the series that I plan on going all year with this, and it'll be the first Friday. And this time we're going to try at noon. So maybe people can take a lunch break and see and join us for a few minutes. They usually run about 30 minutes. Today we'll probably go for about 40 minutes probably, and that we do have some more to cover. So first thing I'd like for someone to do, please, is let me know that my mic's working and everything's fine, and you would please comment, hey, I'm here, and that would help me out a whole lot. So first thing we're going to do is do a review, and I'm sorry, this is probably going to make you dizzy, but I'm just going to speed through and scroll down through last month's topic, which was talking about how habit patterns can be good and habit patterns can be bad. We talked about subconscious sabotage, and we talked about the condition of the human brain, which is that we have a top brain and we have a bottom tiny brain that we call the midbrain, and in the course of addiction becomes something called the beast brain. And we talked about how to do addiction. One brain is on, the other one is off at a time. And our job now is to keep the beast brain off and to keep your brain, the human brain, in charge and in control. All right. We did a activation thought exercise that was really good. And we're going to do another one today at the end of the presentation, so make sure that you stay tuned for that. So, all right, let's jump in. This is lesson 2, which is addiction. How? Why? I need a map. How to map my way through this. All right, so as I promised you, we're going to go over the following as addiction recovery success essentials, and they are 4 steps of how you or your loved one became an addict and how to avoid it, and then 4 stages of recovery so that you know what to expect. And one of the stages you absolutely have to know and you have to prepare for. It's coming in the future for most people listening to me right now. And then the predictable 4-step process of relapse for you and your SAS team to know exactly what to look out for. And then the 5 stages that every human being changes. It's called the 5 stages of change. And so that you can map out where you are right now in that change process. Listen, I've learned so much from the 3,000 addicts and their families that I've counseled in the last 2 decades, no matter where I meet them, like in detoxes that I've worked in, to long-term residential programs, to intense outpatient programs. The stories, although not the same, they all have a common thread or a process that I'm sharing with you, the objective data that I've kind of curated for your consideration so that you can benefit from. To understand the process of crossing the invisible line of addiction and then entering into the recovery stages, and unfortunately about 80% of those people go through the relapse process, we need to understand how human beings change. And so the truth is that they don't change. And I bet you've even heard it. People say, people don't change. And that's true until they do. Very few people actually, only about 20% do change. So statistically, those of you listening to me right now, only 1 out of 5 will make it. Before you get too disheartened, let me spend some time talking about the difference between those who do and those who don't, because it's not just a static statistic or a rolling of the dice or chance. Those that do certain things make it, and those who don't. Those that achieve long-term sobriety do not even bother, or those that do not even bother to those specific behaviors or do not know what to do. Those are the 2 choices. Either you achieve long-term sobriety by knowing and doing or not doing, or maybe you don't know. This is my effort to get that information out there so that you do know. And for many, it's just that. It's just an information gap. They lack knowledge about how to recover, and their family lacks specific knowledge about how to support them in the right way. And my job is to close that information gap. Still, some of you will learn what to do, but you won't do it. And I'm speaking now to both the addict and the family member. And that's your choice. It really is. But you don't have a choice until you learn. And so how about we all just kind of open our mind to be able to consider something new, and later you can discard it if you want, but you have to make some mental room for right now, okay? So let's pause for an affirmation. I can do hard things like learning new ways that might contradict my old ways. I can do hard things like learning new ways that might contradict my old ways. So how do people change? These are the 5 stages of change. And I offer you the way that every human being changes so that you can use it practically. And so you can kind of map out where you are right now and what the next step is for you to grow on the next level. So it's pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, and maintenance. I want you to notice that at any time, anybody can opt out of these and what we call relapse, and then you go back up to the top. You get to start this whole process over again. And let's say that someone tells you something like, I want you to live clean and sober for the rest of your life. And that might represent a change from your years of previous behavior. The response you might have to this in each one of the stages is, first of all, in pre-contemplation stage might be, no way, not now. And contemplation might be, well, maybe. In preparation and determination could be, I'll get ready and I'll start practicing. The action stage is, hey, I'm doing it. And the maintenance stage, which is my favorite, is the new me. The person's identity changes. 20 years ago, I was an insane counselor, and I thought that it was my job to get my client from step 1 to step 5 in one 50-minute session. That's crazy, isn't it? People change incrementally and in a predictable pattern. And I've watched this process in every client my whole professional life. And I've seen a client that was brought kicking and screaming into a 72-hour mandatory hold. And you might have wondered if those things even work. I mean, we hear that people have to want it, right? Wrong. Well, out of thousands of addicts that I've worked with, not a single one of them began their journey being internally motivated or wanting recovery. No. Each one had an external motivator, like from loved ones, from a boss that threatened their job if they didn't straighten up, from pending legal consequences or health issues, etc. Every person in recovery today, if you dig deep enough into their story, you will find this to be true. Remember, for the lesson on the beast brain, that it is a neurological impossibility for someone to get out of their addiction by themselves. So consider my client, we'll just call him Josh. Josh got so bad that a loved one actually got up the nerve to call the police. And he was so out of it this time that the ER doc signed the 2013 order. And Josh was chauffeured to a local psych hospital's detox stabilization program. Josh was screaming, no way, not now. 2 days later, with medication, rest, and the absence of illicit drugs, Josh started to listen to others in the group, and he heard someone else tell his story. And that's when he started to pay attention. And after a family visit, he thought, well, maybe I could try recovery. After the next day, he signed himself into a 30-day program and later into a transition house. And he was saying, I'll give it a try, and maybe this will get me ready, and I'll start practicing the idea of a different life. Months later, he goes home and he starts to see success. I'm doing it. Josh works on his recovery every month, going to a meeting, touching base with his counselor, etc. He either realizes that he will forever have to maintain his sobriety or he will relapse. And so he agrees to do a different way of living for the rest of his life. But he never knew that he would enjoy this so much, the new me. How much of a struggle someone has to change their habit is directly related to how far they went down that road of addiction. And there's a 4-step process of how your loved one became an addict. Consequently, there's a corresponding process for becoming codependent. And more about that in the next lesson. And if you're watching this and feel like that you have not gone down this road, well, then this is essential information so that you can learn how to avoid it. The 4 steps are use, misuse, abuse, and dependency. And if you'll see that I've highlighted the first word, first letter of each word, you mad. Notice it spells out you mad because when you went down this path, it made you mad, it made your family mad, it made your employer mad. Use is the first time that you use a substance or a behavior. In the case of gambling, pornography, shopping, shopaholic is a real thing, or any other addictive behaviors. So, for example, the first time that you tasted alcohol. Misuse is using the substance for something it was not intended. An example might be using opiates not for physical pain but for emotional pain. And it can also be drinking too much so that you have a hangover or negative consequences from drinking. Abuse is using the substance to change the way that you feel or think about yourself or change the way that you act, like in the case of social lubricant. Examples, it can be how you deal with stress, and we call that now psychological dependency. We're not at physiological dependency yet. But this is numbing your emotions to tolerate a bad situation. Dependency is the last and worst stage, and it's the physiological dependency. It's obsessively, compulsively using no matter what the outcome. It's an example might be using even though it puts your job or your relationship at risk. Now, I view this progression as taking over all aspects of who we are, spirit, soul, and body. And at misuse, it usually is a spiritual problem because we know we shouldn't do this from a moral basis. At abuse, it's a problem for your soul, your mind, will, and emotions that cause cognitive, emotive, and behavioral problems. And at dependency, it's now a problem for your body because at this point, you could physically die from coming off of the substances, and you need medical detoxification with certain substances. In that order. And it's interesting that the healing process is the reverse order. So we start off with the body. And I first meet somebody who was using yesterday. My first obligation is so that their body doesn't die. So we're doing an assessment to see what kind of withdrawal they're probably going to go under and if they need any kind of medical detoxification to stabilize their body. Then, sometimes weeks later, the counselors like me use cognitive, emotive, and behavioral therapies to be able to help you get your soul stabilized, your mind, will, and emotions. And lastly, usually over a long period of time, the entirety of the person comes back with something that some people call it a spiritual awakening. And at that point, they are stable, body, soul, and spirit. And so you're starting to get the picture of what recovery looks like now. It works, but it's a lot of work, and it's not fun, easy, or quick. And it helps to have a roadmap of what to expect. So the 4 stages of recovery are withdrawal, honeymoon, the wall, and readjustment. Let's go over each one. Withdrawal is the psychological and physical detox that starts this whole process. Honeymoon is the early recovery whenever you start feeling better. But don't get too cocky because you have the wall stage coming. And after that, you slowly, over time, start to readjust the chemicals in your brain so that you become more like your normal self. While there are many brain chemicals involved in this process, it's easiest just to use dopamine as an example of how your body's immune system is striving to get you healed up and back to normal. So I'm going to oversimplistically make a graph of dopamine on a scale of 1 to 10. All right, so this light blue bar here in the middle is 5, and let's say that that's an average amount of dopamine release in the day of a normal person that's not in overcoming the early stages of addiction. Obviously, during the withdrawal stage, this first part here, the number is reduced. And so, maybe for our sake, it'll be like a 2 instead of a 5. It's kind of like the same way that you really don't enjoy having the flu. And then the honeymoon is almost normal. We'll say that it's a 4 when 5's normal. And you're feeling pretty good. You maybe haven't felt genuinely good in a long time. So this feels really good. But when you hit the wall stage here and the 3rd stage, that's where your dopamine levels and your feel-good chemicals bottom out and you go all the way down to 0. And then the readjustment is slowly going back to normal levels of dopamine release. And so I bet you have two questions for me right now. The first question is probably, how long for this whole process to end? When do I get to be done with this? And then two is when will I hit the wall? Great question. I wish I knew. Every body is different. Sorry, I can give you some statistical averages though. They're probably not going to be very satisfying to you, but withdrawal is usually a few weeks. Honeymoon is usually a few months. The wall can last days or weeks, and then getting fully back to normal can take years. So how's that for some generalization? Okay, there's some very good long-term studies based on drugs of choice, separated and categorized by the substances, about how long each person took in each stage. You can look that up. But honestly, they are about the same, in the same category of time. And so most people go through the withdrawal and then go to honeymoon, usually in about a week or two from their last use. And this is good, but it can be bad because if someone develops like a false sense of security because they don't realize that the wall is coming, maybe they don't have this knowledge. Maybe me just telling you right now that there's a wall coming makes a huge difference for you or for your loved one. And, if they do have that false sense of security, then maybe they think that they got this recovery thing and they don't need all this structure, accountability, and support that everybody's telling them that they need because now they are fine. They got it. Can you imagine how many times I've heard that in my career? They have learned all they need to learn, and so it's time to go back home and back to normal life, but they are ill prepared for the eventual body slam into the brick wall. Everyone hits the wall, usually around month 4 to 6, and some hit it so hard that it knocks the breath out of them, and some people less hard. What seems to make the biggest difference is knowing that you're going to hit it, and so you're looking out for it, like you're putting your hands forward when you're walking in through the dark. Maybe another question that's coming to mind right now is, okay, Casey, tell me more about what it's like to hit the wall, and is there anything I can do to help get through this stage? And my answer is yes, there's a lot you can do. It's the work of recovery, and it feels like a bunch of post-acute withdrawals, PAWs, ganging up on you all at the same time. So more on PAWs in another lesson. That's a whole lesson by itself. Medical science through data sources like brain scans has proven that the 12 steps that were established almost a century ago have what they've been saying for a long time. Submitting to a structured process, sources of accountability, and following and allowing others to support you in your recovery effort is the secret sauce that determines who will be successful and who will be unsuccessful in their recovery. Family members, you can make the biggest difference by monitoring your loved one for signs and symptoms of hitting the wall. You can point it out, perhaps months from now, but you can say, hey man, I think you may have hit the wall. And if so, then it's time to hit that red alert button and get everybody on your SAS team to be ready to come to emergency aid. The goal at this point is just to survive the wall, usually a few days, maybe a few weeks, but just do not relapse. You and your SAS team need to know how to do this, or you get to start this whole happy process all over again. All right. So there's these predictable processes of relapse, and so you and your SAS team need to understand that there's 4 steps in the process of relapse, so you can know what to look out for, what you can guard up against. This is good information to have. Relapse happens the same way every time. It's like slipping down a slippery slope, like an icy or a muddy hill. And the 4 steps of relapse are trigger, thought, craving, and use. And part of the work of recovery is to eliminate as many of the external and internal triggers as possible. We call the external triggers old people, places, and things. We call them PPTs around recovery rooms. Examples of internal triggers are feeling states. And so we're going to spend more time on that in another lesson when we talk about the PAWs. One person in recovery is triggered. Once a person is triggered, then the battle now takes place in the mind. And so we use thought stopping techniques to utilize to stop themselves from slipping down this slippery slope even more. And there's dozens. One example is what I call 3D: delay, distract, decide. Another is to play the tape through. There's literally dozens of these. Hell memory is another one. If they fail to stop the thought, then they will slip to the next stage where they will go into the physiological cravings. Now remember, in the first lesson in this series about the beast brain, well, it's at this point that your higher brain turns off and your beast brain emerges from its sleep, and now it's headed to use. Cravings are the indicator that the light switch has just been turned on, and these cravings are a warning that the person in recovery has moments to call their SAS team members and send up the red flag. Without outside intervention, the beast will take over the body, and it's almost like a zombie that is now headed towards use. It's important to realize that the cycle of an urge is only about 6 minutes, and they can be quickly dealt with thought stopping. But if the urge remains unchallenged, it will grow into cravings that indicate that the person has switched brains. And at this point, it's your real brain is turning off and the beast brain is turning on. Once it does, you can't stop the process. Only other people can. Why? Because you are not in your right mind, but they are. Your thoughts, your feelings have changed, and but there's safety in the team. And so your SAS team can help you. Once they intervene, the beast knows that it cannot get away with using, so it goes back into its cage and pouts. When you wake up, it's almost like you're waking up out of a stupor and you wonder what just happened. And you will have many near misses like this in your recovery. It's to be expected, and you really shouldn't feel ashamed about it. It's a part of recovering. The question is, will you have the safety of a SAS team there whenever you need it? And will they know what to do? And so in the relapse prevention plan, which is here, all right, there is two of about the 30 exercises that are in it that I really want to draw to your attention. The first is a written out relapse progression, where you tell the story of your last relapse. From that, your counselor and your SAS team help you pick out the personal warning signs. And this is a list of behaviors that others can see whenever you're starting to go down the relapse process. Remember, you're probably in the honeymoon stage right now, and so this is a time of peace to prepare for war. Right now, you may not feel like you need to do the recovery work. Go to meetings or change your PPTs or do the inner work on your root issues of your emotional triggers and baggage in your past, or get a sponsor or submit your life to the care of other people and ask them to be on your SAS team. But remember, your wall's coming. The feeling that you have right now is not going to last. So let's do a activation thought exercise. And so this is an opportunity that if you can, hopefully you're not driving, all right? If you are, pull over if you want to do this. It's usually best as a closed eye exercise so you can truly focus. And so it's time to just really take in a deep breath and let the information discussed settle in. And maybe your head is kind of spinning with this information and how it applies to you. On your next long exhale, allow the spinning in your head to kind of slow down as you gently close your eyes and allow yourself to better focus. Part of the job of your subconscious mind is to sort out information that comes in. So in some ways, it's like your file clerk. It's filing away information in a way that makes sense and so that you can use it in a practical way. So really, you don't consciously have to understand everything right now. These things take time, and you can trust your subconscious mind to get it all sorted out. But you can also give your subconscious mind the power to help implement the best plan for you by using the following visualizations. While taking in a deep belly breath, as you exhale at a rate of about twice as long as your inhale, just allow yourself to simply think about breathing and how it feels. How it feels different on the inhale than the exhale. Usually cooler on the way in and warmer on the way out. And on your next long exhale, use your imagination to think about enjoying a roller coaster ride. Your story is that you got on this roller coaster to enjoy yourself with friends, but now you might feel alone. Some of your friends were thrown off the roller coaster, and other people knew something terrible was about to happen, so they safely got off. Maybe you can see them safely on the ground. You can see some trusted family members there too with them. They are all watching you. They are waiting for your decision. You're deciding to let them help you. They are waiting for a signal for you to give them a thumbs up that they can see. They can see things that you can't. You don't always know what's around the next turn on this roller coaster. And you may remember some of these people have shouted to you in the past things like, "Hang on, you're about to do a triple loopy-loop." And maybe you heard them in the past, and maybe sometimes you weren't paying attention, but now you can decide to listen out for their perspective. You can heed their warning about things that you can't see right now, but they can. All it takes is giving them a thumbs up. Giving them a thumbs up is your way of telling them and yourself that you are listening, that you are watching, that you are open to their help and their advice. And it's funny just how easy it's always been for you to pull your fingers in and raise your thumb up. This can be your little reminder for your deeper parts of yourself that you are open to a new way of being. You are open to new structure, accountability, and support. Now you can visualize some people you know, and even some good people that you yet to know, and you can visualize giving them the thumbs up. This communicates to yourself that you're open and accepting of help, and it's pretty great how this builds a sense of peace and comfort inside your chest. Like a warm, glowing light turning on and getting brighter and brighter. It's hope. With some help, you really can do this. Now, feeling the hope and the support and the love that you will soon have flooding into your life, taking a deep breath and feel energy come into and be added to the hope and support and the love, and slowly open your eyes, feeling really great, like you had a really great power nap. Great. Well, how'd that feel? I'd like to know. All right. Well, your homework for this session is that for the person in recovery is to ask people to be on your SAS team. If you need a better description of what that looks like, then I can get you a copy of this relapse prevention plan. Just reach out to me and I'll tell you. Family members, your homework is to agree to be on their SAS team and see their family support plan for details on what you need to do to be able to help them and how that will work. Let me give you a little preview of what we're going to do next month on the first Friday. This class will cover how to truly utilize your willpower and how setting boundary lines really saves everybody. And then the tricky, subtle process of becoming a codependent enabler enmeshed with your addict. That would be really good to get those things figured out. Thanks so much for joining me. Casey Cole Corbin out.